We'd like to welcome everyone to our 7th and final public safety meeting with Mayor Scott and Acting Commissioner Worley. My name is Michelle Henry, and I serve as the Deputy Director of the Mayor's Office of Neighborhoods. And I'm so excited that you guys decided to join us today during our last session. You could have been anywhere, but you decided to be here with us today, so please give yourself a round of applause. Before we get started, we do have a few house rules. These are to ensure that we're able to hear from all of the residents in the room tonight. We ask that you stay respectful of your neighbors who are joining us here tonight and are sharing their time and interests with Mayor Scott and Acting Commissioner Worley. Like I said earlier, if you haven't already, please silence your cell phones. The agenda for tonight is very simple. We'll have Mayor Scott provide brief remarks, and then we'll also have an introduction of Commissioner Worley. Commissioner Worley will also introduce himself, and then we'll open up the floor for questions. When the mayor and the commissioner have finished their remarks, if you have a question that you would like to ask the mayor or Acting Commissioner Worley, we have microphones in the front of the room. We are asking that you line up 5 at a time. You get to ask one question either to the mayor or Commissioner Worley, and then you have a 2-minute limit. Again, we're asking that you line up 5 at a time. You're able to ask one question either to the mayor or Commissioner Worley, and you have a 2-minute limit. We have restrooms located off to the left of the sanctuary. If you would like to utilize the restroom, you can use these double doors to my right. And if you haven't already, please engage in our community road that we have outside of the doors. We have a lot of important agencies here that are here to share some information with you. I will now welcome Bishop Bell to the front to give us a welcome.
All right, let's give Jesus a hand today. That's who woke us up this morning. We just want to take a few moments. I'm Bishop Bell, and welcome to Greater Paradise Christian Center. And if you're in East Baltimore, let me hear you say East Side.
East Side.
Just wanted to make sure we're in the right place. We thank God for you and this opportunity, to our mayor and to our acting commissioner today. But before we do anything, can you just touch the person beside you, put your hand on their shoulder? I believe that there's power in agreement. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this time. And Father, as we open up this meeting today, we don't do anything without you. Thank you for guiding us. Thank you for giving our mayor insight. Thank you for this new acting commissioner. Father, we take authority and we plead the blood of Jesus over our communities. There might be someone today here who might be challenged even right now. We thank you for being a way maker, a miracle worker. That is who you are. Bless us now in Jesus' name. Amen. As I would say every Sunday, paradise is a place where God lives. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Bishop Bell. Everyone, let's give Bishop Bell and the entire family here at Greater Paradise a big round of applause and thank them for opening their doors. East Baltimore, it is so good to be with you all. As you heard, this is our 7th and final of the community engagement sessions with Acting Commissioner Worley. Over the course of this month, we've made our way around the city and virtually hearing from our residents virtually in person. Yesterday, we had great discussions during our second telephone town hall that we catered specifically to our older adults across the city, and we also held one on social media. Tonight, obviously, we're here in the East Side in person, and though we will be streaming, but we'll be hearing from those in the audience. As you heard already about the notes about how to ask your question and where to come for your questions, thank you very much for them in advance. But we just ask that you see we have a packed house tonight to be mindful of our residents and neighbors who are with us. These meetings are really about giving you all a chance to ask questions of the commissioner, and some will be directed to me as well, but really to hear from him also about public safety in Baltimore, from hearing from your perspective, because we know that it takes all of us to make the city a safer place, and we have to work that way each and every day. I always start these off by highlighting where we are regarding Baltimore's public safety. As we are talking tonight, homicides are down 20%, non-fatal shootings are down 10%, violent crime itself is down overall, and we're continuing in Baltimore to buck the trend of many cities to see our violence go in one way. We know that we have a lot more work to do, but these decreases show that we have the ability to work together with our agencies, not just the police department, our law enforcement agencies, but also with the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, our federal partners, our state partners, but most importantly, our residents, as we build this community violence intervention ecosystem, as we focus in on those who are the most likely to be the victim or perpetrator of gun violence through our group violence reduction strategy, allowing them the opportunity to change their life. But if they don't, removing them from our neighborhoods when they choose not to do so. We can continue to see these reductions if we work together, holding everyone accountable along that spectrum. We don't care if you're the person trafficking the gun, using the gun, straw purchasing the gun. Everybody has to be held accountable. Manufacturing guns in ways that we know are irresponsible, like ghost guns that end up on our streets in Baltimore. Everybody has to be held accountable. And with that, I will turn it over to the commissioner for his remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Scott. Thank you, Bishop, for hosting. Thank you all for being here. I am Richard Worley. I was born and raised in Baltimore, grew up in Pigtown. I lived in Brooklyn for 12 years. I came up through the department. I worked every single rank. I started out as an officer in the Western District, made it up to major of the Northeast District, and then I worked my way up to the acting commissioner. I've seen what works and what doesn't work in Baltimore. I lived through some really bad areas with zero tolerance. It never worked. It alienated the community, and we are still fighting to win the community back. That is my number one priority, to enhance community trust, to completely implement the consent decree, and to come out of the consent decree before I leave the agency. Also improve our staffing. We are down over 540 officers, over 1,000 officers down from 2013, and to continue our increased crime reduction. One of the biggest things that I did in the Northeast, I was able to connect with the community because I communicated with them on a regular basis, and I was honest. I told them when we messed up. I told them when we did well. We mess up, you fix it, you move forward, and I'm going to do the same thing as the commissioner. I'm going to be straightforward and honest, as I was in the very first Brooklyn hearing. That's the only way I know how to be. It's the way that got me here, and I don't plan on changing as the commissioner. You ask me a question, I'll give you an honest answer. I'm not going to make promises I can't keep, but what I can tell you is that you will see more officers out on foot. You'll see more in community engagement through my tenure, and our officers will continue to do the fabulous job they've done over the last 4 years to become the most reformed police department in the country, that now other departments are coming here to see what we've done and how we've changed our department over the last 4 years. So thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll get to the questions. Shorty?
You ain't got to load the microphone. I don't even need a microphone. This ain't a question yet. All right. First thing is, you owe me a book and some material I gave you last thing. All right.
I told you outside. I got you.
I know you got me, but see, I want you to do this in the public space, cause see, the people need to see this. You know what I'm saying? Cause what you do in the dark coming to the light. That's why I did it in the front of people, so everybody can see this. Now, this question is for Commissioner Worley. How long you been in, I think you was at the Northeast District in 2012? I got 2 minutes, time.
No. I got there December 27th, 2012. So I was there for five days.
Remember when y'all had Bernstein there and y'all did the Bernstein? Y'all did the Bernstein thing? When Bernstein came to the community, talking to the community? Remember that?
The community state's attorney?
Yeah, remember when Bernstein came there?
Well, I remember the program.
Well, I was there with you. You had two north, what's that neighborhood, Northeast neighborhood. You had two community meetings. You had one community meeting for the white people, and you had another community for the black people. And in the back,
that's not true.
No, it is true. And I was there. And in your back room, you got a war room, right? In the back right-hand corner, you got a war room.
No.
In that war room, you had all kind of gang members and things of that nature that was on your board. Now, I wasn't the only one there. James MacArthur was there. Leo Zimmerman was there. And so was Pine. You feel me? So I need that paperwork, and I need you to do your job and not to separate these people. What you say and what you do is two different things, and I'm going to be on you.
You know that's simply not true. There was no separate meeting.
One thing I don't do is lie.
Okay.
All right? One thing I don't do is lie.
Okay.
Hi, how you doing?
Good
Hi.
evening, ma'am.
I would like to be.
I'm gonna give it to Shorty. You know I'm gonna give you your paper.
Hi,
Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Amanda. I'm here to try to remind everybody, including especially you, Mr. Mayor, why the police department is under a consent decree right now. After our children bravely rose up when they were provoked to say, "I'm tired, it's enough," the Justice Department investigated, and this is what they found at the consent decree. For the consent decree, at the press conference, they said providing policy service in many parts of Baltimore is particularly challenging, where residents and officers regularly confront complex social and economic challenges rooted in poverty, racial segregation, deficient education, unemployment, and housing opportunities. They continued by saying, BPD engaged in a pattern of practices and violate the constitutional rights of the residents of Baltimore. So, 1 minute, okay. So this is what I'm here to say. This is why we have a police department. At the University of Baltimore School of Law, they had a symposium called 400 Years of Slavery and the Criminal Justice System. This police department is not here to serve and protect us. What we need to do, this is why we're here. What we need to do is to build wealth in our own communities, just as the Justice Department says, not by policing, but basically cease building wealth for our oppressor by continuing to commodify our bodies through the prison industrial complex. And so I wish I had more time, but I also, just real quickly, if I could just say I would like to talk to you in person or whatever about the Hopkins Police Department and how I was met with racist vitriol when I approached the president of Hopkins about it. So I just want to so there's more, but.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
I love Baltimore. Baltimore's a great place. And it's not as bad as you know these media is making it out to be.
Thank you, ma'am. And I'll start off by saying, so I know very vividly what was said by the Department of Justice and during the pattern practice investigation. As many of you know, working with some of the folks in this room, we are actually one of the first cities to actually ask for that. Myself, I know Councilman Costello, Councilman Stokes, and others who were on the city council and working at the time. We were part of the group of folks that asked for that to happen, so that this wasn't something that the Department of Justice, because the truth is, when they first came here, they weren't doing that, right? They were just looking at things at the surface level, and we're going to continue to see that process through. Yes, sir.
Thank you for having me. First of all, my name is Lloyd Murphy. I know at the Shake and Bake meeting, we kind of went back and forth about some things, but here's why I'm here today. I understand the administration that you inherited was an absolute mess, all right? So with that being said, listen, man, we're not against you, right? But we are tired of the continuing things that it just goes on. It's just so repetitive, is that we're frustrated, right? So I want to ask you and Commissioner Worley, right, to please just do one thing. Be true to the folks that you serve. And I promise you, we'll be with you the whole time, all right? Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And listen, we appreciate that. We all know what the world was like on December 8th, 2020, when I took office, right? In addition to the obvious stuff in Baltimore, right? We were in the middle of a pandemic that no one knew if the world was going to be the same ever again, and we now know that it won't be. But we also know that many of the systemic things that have been existing long, and oxygen has been coming out of my mouth, were not going to be solved in 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 years, or 5 or 6. But we have to be the foundational blocks. And one thing you will always get from me is that I'm going to try my best, and I'm never going to do anything to compromise my integrity, my family's name, and the people that I represent.
Thank you. Good evening. Commissioner, I'm interested in understanding the specific protocols and procedures that the Baltimore City Police Department has in place regarding the utilization of Stingray devices. These devices have the potential to collect data from a wide range of individuals, including those who are not necessarily suspects in ongoing investigations. Could you please elaborate on how the department ensures that the data collected from non-suspects is handled, stored, and protected to safeguard the privacy and civil liberties of the broader community?
Wait, what did you, the Stingray?
Stingray devices.
Cell phone Stingray device.
No, what happens anytime, as part of the consent decree, anytime we come in contact with an individual, we have to write basically a field interview. That gets stored to make sure, what it's done is checks and balances to make sure that we are not disproportionately stopping certain people. And it looks as where we stop them, why they were stopped. And we do body worn camera audits to see that the stop was exactly what it was supposed to be. We check body worn camera to make sure that the stop was actually done and record it. And we continue to look at that data and we give it to the Department of Justice to analyze it. And we continue to monitor to make sure we are doing everything within the consent decree, within the Department of Justice, within the Constitution, to police a much better way than we did. Because I read the consent decree from front to back, and it is a blueprint for how the police department should move forward. That's what we've been doing for 4 years. That's why all these departments from around the country are coming, trying to figure out how we turned our department around in just four years. We got a long way to go. We're not anywhere near being out of the consent decree. We have a couple years left in it because we still have some things to cover, which mainly is community policing. We haven't done very well with the community policing part of it. And my first marching order is to get that amped up to where we are in the communities more and we're out of the consent decree within a couple years, but because we've satisfied every paragraph.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
And while you come up, sir, I just want to acknowledge, I know Councilman Glover, Councilman Stokes, Councilman Costello, and Delegate Young are all with us this evening.
Hey, my name's Phil Harder. Okay. I'm an urban gardener in East Harwood. I wanted to ask, for both the mayor and the acting commissioner, what is your position on the police facility that's being planned right now at Coppin State University? Especially considering that you guys just mentioned that crime is down and police employment is down. So do we need a police training facility, or do we need more money in education and things like the infrastructure? And also, have you guys asked the people in that community what they think about that?
So I'll just jump right in and say that, as you know, that's not a study that was done by the city, right? And what I'll just say, as the mayor who has put more money into education than any mayor in the history of Baltimore, and when you think about our capital projects that we have, this one is something that we don't have funding for right now, and quite frankly, we have other things that are going to come way before that. Let me finish. We know that we have to have adequate training facilities and facilities for all of our employees, but when you look at what the city's priorities are, and our budgets are our priorities. And for me, anyone can look at it and see that when you look at what agency has been getting the biggest percentage increase of capital budget since I've been mayor, it's been Recreation and Parks. And that's not going to change as long as I'm the mayor. And we have other projects like Perkins, Somerset, Old Town, and Councilman Stokes' district that has to be done. That includes a new City Springs Elementary. We know that the courthouse. We have all these other facilities that we have. We have the Boat Check Rec Center expansion right down the street from here. All of these things are coming before that. The priority list is there. You look at the city's capital budget, you won't see this project. No, this is two things. This is in Atlanta, and we're in East Baltimore right now, right? So let's just get that started out straight. This is in Atlanta. We're in Baltimore, East Baltimore to be specific. When you look at when you understand, this isn't a yes or no question. If you ask me if I think we should have adequate training facilities, something that we're required to have by our consent decree, we're going to say yes. But when you're asking me, oh, we're going to be funding that right now, I ask you to look at the capital budget and see what we're funding.
Okay, thank you.
And we're going to take a quick pause really quickly. Ashell, can you raise your hand, please? That is the end of the line. We're going to pause just momentarily until we can clear up the back row. So we'll take the questions. When we shorten the line, then whoever else has questions, then you can get in line at that point. Thank you.
Ma'am.
Hi, good evening, Mayor Brandon Scott and
Good evening, ma'am.
Interim Commissioner. Thank you for this opportunity. First, I want to give you some statistics before I ask you the number. I thank you. I'm aware of that. John Rura, overall Maryland State report card, 39.5 overall, how they are proficient. Patterson Park Public Charter, 53.7. Merville, 43.5. Poly, 73.4. And Ashburton, Dr. Nathan A. Pitts, Ashburton, which is an elementary middle school, 30.4. This is the proficiency that is found not in my book, but in the Maryland State Department of Education. That is what anybody is able to see where their school is at. My question is, has there been any study done that we can see the correlation between a low-performing school system and how the criminal element in the streets swallow our youth? I'll tell you this, I work at a school. I work at Fort Worthington. The average there is 27. Attendance is important, we say, and it is. Attendance will help children to make sure that they do not struggle academically, are more likely to be held back if they miss more than 20 days, are more likely to drop out if they miss more than 20 days, and are more likely to get into trouble with the law. So my question is, how can we say that children are our future when we can't take care of their present? And these statistics, would we want to get 50.7 or 53.7% of our paycheck when we put in the full? And I do work at a school. I worked at private, public, and I've homeschooled my children as well to get them prepared. Not everybody can do that. But as an immigrant from El Salvador who's bilingual, I am heartbroken that Black children cannot read and write, and I am tutoring them at Central Library every Saturday for the last 10 years. And that is a shame, because these children need to learn how to read and write. That way they can succeed. And so that's why I do that.
Thank you. And let me first start off by saying thank you for that, man. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for working at Fort Worthington, which, if folks don't know, that's actually just right across the around the corner there. So we know, that not just here, but across the state and really across the country, the proficiency rates have dropped and have worsened since the onset of the pandemic. We also know the historic nature. I think our first question asker tonight painted the picture. We all know how this started, right? We're talking about neighborhoods that were racially redlined and disinvested in for many generations, and we can all talk about when drugs showed up into East Baltimore and West Baltimore and how they got there, and we're dealing with now the aftermath of that. That's the reality of where we are today. And what we have to now do, we also know through the efforts of many, some in this room and others around the Kerwin and Blueprint for Maryland's Future, we also know that the state of Maryland admitted that for at least 10 years it underfunded Baltimore City schools to the tune of $300 million a year, right? And when you ask someone to fix the roof of their house and the foundation, but you only give them money to fix one, the house is sure to fail. And now that we're in the beginning phases of implementing that and how we can make those investments, in the city putting in more money, but we also know that this is going to be about how we're repairing families and allowing them to have that opportunity. It's going to take all of us, especially when parents are working 2 and 3 jobs. And let me just be the first to say, in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, 1 job should be enough, right? You shouldn't have to work 2 and 3 jobs to be there for your children. But we need everybody to be doing what you're doing, to work with young people. I know some other people in this room who mentor, because when you're reading at or above a grade level proficiency at 3rd grade, all the good things in life happen for you. If you're below that, all the bad things happen for you. And that's why we focus. I actually announced yesterday a big attendance initiative that's going to be happening with myself in city schools. I know I'm going to be going out with principals and others to knock on doors of families to get our young people back into school, because this is not just about us pouring more money at the problem. It's also about us getting at the root of how we not just communicate, but also how we help and assist those that need that help. And that's going to take all of us to do that.
Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Scott and Commissioner Worley. I'd like to compliment you, Mayor Scott, for having temporary lights put on my street. We were so happy when that happened. We have to make an adjustment on one of the lights, but at least we have some, and hopefully our street lights will be restored. I am a volunteer. I've retired from Baltimore City Public Schools, and I've been working in the Cherry Hill area, particularly on Booker Drive. My family lived there for many years, and it was a stable community. People looked after one another. It was not drug infested. It was just a wonderful community to live. However, in recent years, as I've been working there, I have noticed that there are many vacant homes. 2 homes in particular I am concerned about, 2853 and 2855 Bookert. They are magnets for tall weeds, grass, and debris. Recently, I saw this on one of the houses, 2853, no shoot. And I asked a neighbor, what does that mean? And she said, unfortunately, a person was killed in that area. I would like Mayor Scott to have some support from the city. To get some support from the city to build a garden there in memory of those persons who have perished in Cherry Hill. And I would like to know, how can I get help from you or anybody in this auditorium to help me with that endeavor?
Yeah,
Thank
ma'am,
you.
we'll have to follow up with you on that. More than likely, there is private property, and that would have to be something that would be discussed with the person that owns that property. But you see that young lady right there, she can get your information, and we can follow up.
And just to show you
good.
that I'm serious.
Yes, ma'am.
This is a notebook of all the documentation I have to try to help that community.
Yes, ma'am.
And I've reached out to city agencies, volunteers, everyone. And in fact, Commissioner Worley, the first big cleanup of Booker Drive, 100 people showed up, and some of them were officers from the Southern Police Department.
All right.
So
Good.
compliment to your department.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Hey, how y'all doing?
How you doing, bro?
Hey, Commissioner.
How are you, sir?
Man, Commissioner, y'all saying that crime is down in the city, right? But it's more kids running around with guns, juveniles at that. That don't even add up. That's one. Another thing, too, let's be honest, the criminal system is a part of the economy, right? So we build a juvenile jail, we focus on the young people so we can overall attract their minds so we can distract the future of Baltimore. That just, I don't understand it, because the city is designed this way. And the drugs, as far as the weed and pills, those are pharmaceutical drugs. So those are made by doctors and stuff. So, I mean, that's just the truth. We don't even need no facts on that. When I was in the streets, I haven't been involved in the streets for 25 years. First time I got my hand on a gun, I was like 28. We talking about 11 years old, middle school. I was talking to a guy outside of city, the school system on North Avenue last week, right? After I went in there to get some questions about some schools being closed, right? They said they didn't know no one that I can talk to. It's like me going to Pepsi asking for a soda and they say they don't have none. Then I went and talked to a man outside, right? He said his child was dropped off a road because he missed 2 weeks. His son got robbed. So you mean to tell me we can lock parents up for their child missing 2 weeks, but we can't lock no parents up for their child doing misharm in the community? Come on,
So
man.
I think you and I had a little bit of discussion last week. So we'll just start with the obvious. We know, myself, the commissioner, members of the council have all expressed frustration with some of the laws at the state level that result in young people not being able to be held accountable at all. And let me just first say that I'm one that believes and knows that the traditional adult system doesn't work for. You can't treat an 11-year-old, even if they get caught with a stolen car, the same way that you would treat someone that's 35, because his brain's not fully developed. So anybody that doesn't understand that, you understand that, but many people don't, right? However, there has to be some level of accountability, right? And I think that what's going to be happening in Annapolis, right? So this is where all of this frustration you have about state laws and who can't be locked up for what and all of that, we can't change that. We're the ones, we go just like you, right, to go down there and advocate for those things. But what has to be built for young people doesn't exist anywhere in this country, because what we can't go back to, we just heard someone talk about that. We're not going to go back to the days that, like, oh, well, you see some young man, 12, 13, 14, and black outside, well, just lock him up. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. That's how we ended up where we are today. And we have to have that balance. We know that the state built this new juvenile facility, but I'll just remind some of the folks in this room who were involved in that effort that that facility was supposed to be a lot bigger than it actually ended up being, because people in the city advocated for other things. This happened many years ago. O'Malley was governor back then, Governor O'Malley. And what we have to continue about where the guns come from that these young people are getting their hands on, right? This is why myself and mayors around the country are suing gun companies. They are purposely going around gun laws to make it so that teenagers, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds can go online, order 3 parts of a gun, and put it together, right? And then adults and that's the other part, right? We know when the gun gets in the hand of 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old, most of the time there's some grown man that lives in their neighborhood that either gave it to them or sold it to them. And we have to have some community accountability there. We're going to continue to go after anybody that's involved in that, and we're going to continue to try. The biggest frustration I do have right now is that the violence is down basically for every category age of people except young people. They're the ones where it's dead even, right? And we have to have a deeper impact on that. That's why we were doing the things that we did this summer. That's why we're pouring money into those other kind of engagements with young people. But we have to build a system working with our partners at the state that allows for there to be accountability, but also understands that we can't treat children like adults. Thank you.
And we've also, of the ghost guns, these are the personally manufactured firearms where you can actually order the pieces online and put the weapon together. 1/3 of the arrests that we've made with those ghost guns are for teenagers, all the way down to the age of 13.
Yep. Thank you.
Ma'am.
Well, thank you very much, Toby. And this is a question for the acting commissioner, and I think it's a follow-up. First of all, I just want to say thank you for saying you support robust implementation of the consent decree and that you stand behind many of the reforms we've had over the last 4 years. We really want someone who means that. But last week I was not there, but I heard from people who were, that you said that you supported accountability by parents for the crimes of their children. Now, if you did say that, I wonder what you meant by that, whether you meant intervention into families by police, whether you meant some kind of legal accountability. And if you did, under what circumstances are we talking about? If you didn't say it, in a way, I would like to take it off the table, because I think it's been shown, data's shown that in the 90s that system didn't work. It actually created greater distrust, and it has all kinds of civil and due process implications. So I'm done. So where do you stand on this?
Yes, ma'am. I did say it, but I said it in the context of wraparound services, because not everything is law enforcement. Maybe there's some other thing that's causing the young person to be out at 4 o'clock in the morning. We had 2 of our officers get shot at the other morning around 3 in the morning by I think it was a 16-year-old, a 17-year-old, and an adult. So obviously there's something going on in that household that the the family doesn't know where their young person is. We've got to figure out why. If they need help, we can give them wraparound services with the city. State's attorney is even willing to do diversion programs for the young people. It's not about holding the parents accountable through the law. It's about holding them accountable and helping them to get their young people on the right path. We don't want to lock the young people up because they like the gentleman earlier said, they're our future. I want our officers in the schools more, interacting with with the young people, playing ball more with them. We just finished our commissioners basketball league last week. So those are the things that I want. We're bringing back an Explorer program that went away that starts with kids 14 to 20. We have a cadet program, and I also want to bring back the point where our officers are in the school teaching the DARE program, because the more interaction, positive interaction we have with the kids, the better, and the more they're going to look up to us for guidance. If the parent isn't home, if the parent, like the mayor said, if the parent's working 2 jobs and the young person's out on the street, he's got to have some guidance. Maybe he can go to our officer and ask for help. So those are the things that we're looking for.
Thank you. Somebody told me that Delegate Jackie Addison, there's my delegate. Delegate Addison is here. Good evening, ma'am. Ma'am?
Good evening.
Hey.
My name is Diane. I'm from the Oliver community. And I really don't have any questions for you guys, but we do have a community that's in desperate need to continue to help the young people to stay out of trouble. No questions directly to you, but we have a facility over there that the city is planning on not giving us transparency of what they need to do. We have a whole group over here of the elite band that practice there, and we don't have no place to service the young people. So what will happen? Then they will be serviced by you and not the community.
Yep, and thank you, Ms. Diana. I think that I'll make sure that you guys hear from them. For those who may not know, Ms. Diane had this and my folks have had this conversation a lot. Ms. Diane and the community were failed by many of my predecessors, allowing people to be in a building where they knew there was mold and all these other things, and we had to move them out. And I know that my team has been talking with them, and we will find a place for the band to talk. Even if we have to move that to another facility, we're going to make sure that that happens for sure. Yes, sir.
All right, everybody, I greet you all in the holy word of peace. Hello. And if you're from East Baltimore, West Baltimore, what's up? Hotep. All right, so I'm here today with my family, and I'm actually having in my hand a folder. You see it's kind of busted up. It's the same folder that I referenced to you last time I seen you on September the 12th.
Yes, sir.
I'm here with my family who was present. In this folder was 3 documents. One document that spoke about the Criminal Justice Reform Act. This is pretty much, we can agree, is the hottest topic in town now, right?
Yes, sir.
And then the second document, and I'm only bringing this up because pretty much everybody is speaking to a lot of these issues, and we brought that to your attention for other strategy. The Convention on the Prevention of Punishment of Crime and Genocide, and also the Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples. We talked about how that applied to the situation, but it was declined, and we can go further and have other meetings about them, but that's all that you are hearing addressed here, the identity issue that these young people are running into with the crime, and that has to be addressed. And these Black indigenous people of color should not only hear that in media, they should be represented by paper. And it's already been signed by the federal government. We just need you to recognize it. I got 1 minute. Perfect amount of time. All right, so just wanted a resolution from you as far as that, because we had failed in the justice system, as I told you could possibly happen. And then we failed at the General Assembly because the bill was held by Luke Clippinger, personally held by him, who created this actual document, not our Black sister, Jill Carter, who's getting all the flack, who was the only person in the whole state who chose to meet with us and look at this bill. Now, let's address the bill. We sat in front of the old commissioner. The question is for you, Mr. Commissioner. We sat in front of the old commissioner, and we told him that my family who works in this field, and we all sat as a family and read the bill. It states that an intake officer, who the state's attorney has said, who the Maryland General Assembly has said, they all have recognized the police as the intake officer process to be started. And in each of these criminal situations of the youth, no intake officer has started the process for the kids to get the proper servicing that goes to house services It goes through mental services, drug and rehabilitation. There's another 2 that I'm missing. But the point that I'm making is that the only way that this process starts so the kids don't just get thrown back into the street is you all started. And it has been proven in each place that we've went to that it has not yet been started by the police. Actually, everywhere we go, I'm going to stop. Everywhere we go online right now, you all literally have personally said there's nothing you can do. And we have that right here.
Yeah, actually,
let me
I'll
take a
address
look at
the policy one. You can go first. I'll address the policy one. I think that there's a little policy question, but go ahead. You can.
Yeah, I mean, I can take a look at it. I'm not familiar with it. I don't know. Okay. Yes. Take it.
You got paperwork, man.
Okay.
And I think that what I would say to you too, though, is I think sometimes other folks like to push off a little bit. I can't speak for it, right? All right, they like to push off a little bit on what responsibilities are, but we know, as you said, it is the hottest topic in not just in the city, it's the hottest topic in the state right now. And I know that many of the folks at the state level are feeling the understanding that something has to be done differently.
The question was the intake officer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
I
he's-
can
we're
take a
gonna
look
address
at it. I'm not familiar
but
with
I'm
what
pretty
it is.
sure that the intake officer in this case would be where the arrestee is taken, which in our case would not be under us because the state runs the jail, but we'll follow up on it.
If it is our people, we will do it.
Hello, my name is Dayana. I'm a part of the Marching Elite Band. So we know your whole platform is really the youth. And yes, the concern of the Oliver Center was brought up. But the main concern is we got put out in the middle of Youth Works, a program that you made bigger so the kids can have somewhere to go. So it left a lot of us with nothing. So I'm from Park Heights, and now I live in Cherry Hill. Miss Rivera's over here. I used to be in her Safe Street program. And anytime something happened with the kids, she'll call me. Because over the last 2 years, my younger brother-in-law lost 15 of his closest homeboys to being killed. And it's like Mr. Leader, he became like a father figure from when my brother see him. And I just felt like y'all taking that center is taking away somewhere for the kids to go, because most of the other bands, uniforms are $200 and then it's $100 registration fee. When we got it for Youth Works, we was in for free, and normally it's not that much money. So now they taking away a free spot for the kids, but then everyone complaining kids are running the street and kids have guns. But if your friends constantly getting killed because they don't have nothing to do, you would expect the kid to carry a gun around with them.
Yeah, I'm sorry for that. Thank you. Oh, don't go. Stay. Don't go. Stay. So first, thank you for being a part of Youth Works, and we're happy to expand it. I'll say this: it was my understanding, if it isn't, somebody will have to deal with me when I leave here today, that they were finding a place or have found a place for you guys to relocate. If that didn't happen, then someone will be being disciplined for that, right? But also, what I will say is that the one thing you will always get from me is the thing. Sometimes it's going to be hard, right? I could not, as mayor, once they let me know what was happening in the building as far as the conditions of the building, allow you or anyone else to go in there. Because if something happens with your health later on, all of us will be able to have to pay for that. But we will, if they haven't already, find another location for you guys to be in so that the great program can continue. That will happen. Thank you.
Shalom, shalom. That's for the real Jews. To you, brother Esau, they can never tell the truth. I want to just basically talk about the crime and the cause of the things that affect us. We great with the things that affect us. We excellent with that. But when it's time to get to the cause, we fumble with that. So I got two scriptures, right? One is Ezekiel 35:5, KJV. Because thou hast had a perpetual hatred, right? And hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword. Esau, you blessed with the sword. And in the time of their calamity and in their iniquity had an end. America is Babylon the Great. And here Babylon the Great Esau, Edom, y'all run everything. Esau, Edom has a perpetual hatred for Jacob. Jacob are the children of Israel as real Jews that came across the transatlantic slave trade. This is information that y'all should know about. It's real easy to learn. I got 1 minute, so what I want to say is that crime and poverty, you can't have, right? Listen clearly, people. You can't have crime without poverty. It's a marriage. It's a marriage. It's a perfect marriage. However, listen carefully. However, right? One side of the marriage get fully exposed, which is the crime. The poverty always get away scot-free and do what it want to do, when it want to do it, how it want to do it. So my question to you, because I only got a little bit of time, I got more to share. What's in place to get rid of the poverty? I've worked in the system for almost 20 years dealing with juveniles. I came across this information, realized that I'm a real Jew, that you have a perpetual hatred for me. So if you have a perpetual hatred for me, how in the hell can you get me out the poverty I'm in?
Well, thank you, sir. Let me first say I don't hate you. Let me start there. But what I will say is, what I will say to you is that we all know that poverty, that structural racism, all the things that have existed in Baltimore. I mean, we all know that that's the problem. There are many things that have been done. When you even think about the way we've changed around how the city's investing in its capital budget and spending in those neighborhoods, right? When you look at Johnson Square in East Baltimore, where we're putting in money and showing folks how to take them from being renters and being homeowners, the Buy Back the Block program, where we're allowing people who are buying their first home to allow them to create that generational wealth. Even when you think about our guaranteed income pilot that we're running specifically for young parents and young families, so that we can show myself and mayors around the country, show the federal government that in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, there should be an income floor and everybody should be at that level. Well, I don't have nothing to do with leaving out the country. That's not my job. I'm only focused on Baltimore. I'm only focused on Baltimore and what we're doing here. And that's the kind of work that we're beginning now. And when, as you stated, and when you're talking about hundreds of years in disinvestment, you notice that's not going to flip like that. But these are the beginning stages of how we can work together to build that and do those things and show that they work. Because there are many folks, media and otherwise, when I said we are going to show how to attack and work to start ending poverty by doing this guaranteed income pilot. People told me, oh, this is welfare to people that don't deserve it. These are people who don't deserve any assistance. You shouldn't be giving it to these poor mothers. Why are you giving them this money? And the reality is what we're seeing is that they're using that money for things that allow them, their families. They're getting housing for them and their families. They're getting cars and transportation so that they now don't have to spend 4 hours on the bus every day, spending their time away from their children so they can be there to read with them so that their families are more whole. Those are the kind of things that we're doing and we're going to continue to do.
Can I ask one more question?
You got one question, man. There's a lot of people behind you.
And I can tell you,
she's standing right there behind you.
I don't dislike you either, sir. I grew up in poverty. I was able to get through college and high school through sports. So I grew up in Pigtown. Look at my history.
Ms. Jones.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. And Worley. I've been at all these meetings, and not just these meetings, for the past 10 years since my brother Tyrone West was brutally executed, beat to death, murdered in broad daylight, kick, stomp, pepper spray, tased, murdered. And then the medical examiner's office covered it up and had to go into my pocketbook and get out $50,000, no GoFundMe, my own money. I'm a Baltimore City teacher, no money, but I had to get out $50,000 and have my brother's body exhumed to prove that he was murdered. And now that they're trying to look back into my brother's case, I'm just tired of everybody acting like they're so restricted on doing this and they're just passing the buck around. These are our lives at stake. Just like John Hopkins didn't want private policing, and you're pushing it on them any old way. You know, y'all not listening to the people and what we want. And it seems like our babies are being attacked and targeted all over the news. Everything's about a teenager. Nobody's talking about the babies that went to school and was successful
Amen
in
to
the
that.
last couple of days. They don't never talk about that. But soon as somebody get caught with a gun or doing something wrong, but they want to talk about that, but they don't want to talk about the corruption of these dirty officers. They're passing the buck. And the first cop that murdered one of the 17, Officer Ruiz, a known repeat violent offender that almost killed 6 people leading up to my brother being murdered on July the 18th, 2013. Disgusting. But he gets to go and marry Michelle Battle, a state prosecutor, and nothing was done. How is that not corruption? And last week when I got here, someone cut my tire. When I mentioned it to you guys, nobody said nothing. Literally, I'm trying to get my babies ready for school. I'm trying to go into school to teach, and I got to get my tire repaired. This is disgusting to me, but I have a question after all of what I'm saying. 30 seconds. My question is, since everybody's passing the buck, and then I want to say real fast that Amy Dillon was a part of the independent foolishness, and she said that what they did was corrupt, and she would have did more. She's a lawyer, part of a 6 panel, and I want to make sure that this doesn't happen when my brother's case get reopened. But my question is, what is the Baltimore City Police Office bound to do? Like, what are their duties? Like, literally, somebody can stand in front of them and get murdered, and y'all can't do nothing. So what is that? That's my question.
Why are y'all here? Well, first, our duty is to protect and serve. Basically, what happens, we investigate the case just like we did your brothers. The state's attorney did the investigation. The state's attorneys decided not to press charges. Once the state's attorney was done, we did our internal investigation into the whole incident, and there were no internal charges filed. Those things were presented to the police commissioner back then. He agreed with them, and the case was closed in both the criminal court and in our administrative court. I was not the police commissioner back then. I was a major. I did not have privy to the investigation. I did not see the investigation. It was all done at the higher level of the chief of the criminal internal affairs division and the state's attorney's office. I had nothing to do with, and the BPD had nothing to do with the state's attorney's office. They did their investigation.
And Ms. Jones, I'll follow you later about the. I don't know. I thought around the tire slashing, I wanted to see where it happened, but I can follow with you. And as I said to you, every week, if they reopen it and they find something different, we will follow those recommendations and handle it to the T.
I appreciate that because it shouldn't have never been closed. He was brutally executed.
Yes, ma'am.
And we can take 5 more people in line.
And happy first week too, man.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Over the last few meetings, I've asked similar questions about the way you would handle police officers who participate in police brutality. In the last meeting, you claimed that I didn't like your answers to my question, and you're correct, but not in the reason, that you think. I didn't like your responses because you never really answer them, and you're quite adept at deflecting and casting blame and responsibility onto everyone else but yourself. Your record of non-action while major at the Northeast District cost taxpayers millions in civil lawsuits, and no officers were ever held accountable, even though they were involved in multiple cases as repeat violent offenders. The law that passed where the AG handles cases are only for the ones that result in death or very serious injuries that can result in death, but not all cases of police brutality. Many citizens have made attempts with a couple of lawmakers over the last 5 years to repeal LEOBR that shields officers and handcuffs the commissioner. My question is, what do you feel your job as commissioner is going to entail, especially in police brutality cases, since you felt up to this point that the responsibility for holding officers accountable fell on everyone else's plate but yours? What's your plan of action to ensure taxpayers aren't paying for these egregious violations? Can you just give me 1 or 2 examples of what you plan to do as commissioner that's going to be different than every other commissioner that has ignored the issue of police misconduct?
Well, first, the officers are all held accountable. One of the officers who did misconduct in the Northeast District is serving 20 years in federal prison. There are several other officers who went to jail for their actions that were done in the Northeast District. My job as a district commander is to turn the cases over to internal affairs. Internal affairs is an independent investigation. I know you don't like the answer, but this is the answer and it's the way things are done. And I've given you the same answer 4 or 5 times now. The internal affairs looks at the cases. If they see something criminal, they turn over to the state's attorney. The state's attorney does an investigation. If they file charges, they file charges against the officer. The officer's held on criminal charges. They are tried on the criminal charge. If they get found guilty, then the internal affairs starts their investigation and the officer can be terminated. Under the consent decree, this is one of the reasons why we're in the consent decree, is for the oversight from the Department of Justice. There are policies and checks and balances now so that we can look at body-worn camera. We check all use of force. Every officer on the street has a camera where everything that they do is recorded. If they don't record it, that's a violation. They get held accountable, and they could lose days, they could lose money, they could be demoted. There's a disciplinary process that's got to be followed.
And then, ma'am, I'll just say again, as we go to the next person, that as you know very well, I know that you guys were involved in the effort. We'll be again in Annapolis trying to change laws that prohibit us. We, the police, the citizens of Baltimore BPD, we should not have been required to have members of the GTTF stay on taxpayer payroll for the time while they were going through this process, right? But we know that under state law right now, we have to do that. And we have asked for many years now to have that removed to allow the police commissioner in Baltimore and other places in the state of Maryland to have the same autonomy that other police leaders have in other countries, that when someone does something like this egregiously, they can be removed. And if they are found not guilty in a criminal court, or they go through eternal process and find that, then they can get their job back. But we shouldn't be having to hold people on our books that have done some of the things that like Sergeant Jenkins and others have done, and we're going to continue to advocate for that in Annapolis. So, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Everybody.
Good evening.
I'm here today, man, representing the root to the city in crisis. I am the root to the city in crisis. 50 years ago, I was pushed through the Baltimore City school system. But then again, I wasn't pushed. I'm here to represent the kids. I know exactly what's going on and how to break this curse, to bring darkness into the light. But you don't give me enough time. But all the answers to your questions is inside of me. A special gift is in me to save your children. Your children. This is not a game. I sit here, I can tell y'all right now what we're dealing with, man, to save our kids. If y'all give me some time, we all gonna leave out here on one page. I survived it all. Drinking antifreeze trying to take my life. Drug addiction. Bullets going through my body, still alive. Why am I still alive? The boy, this 4-year-old kid, young boy, that was interviewing, was in the 4th grade, that couldn't read. That's me. That couldn't read. You know, if y'all want to get on one page, there's any resources in here, we'll take my story so we can save the future of our children, not just here, all across the United States of America. You know, this is the goal, to become a city in healing. We all need healing. It's something in me, man, that we all can leave out of here on one page and save these poor innocent kids. My nephew's exposed to it. My niece is exposed to it. It's all trauma. Trauma. How do a child lose hope? How do they lose their vision? Kids don't grow up and want to be a squeegee boy or be a drug addict. What happened to our kids? What's happening? If anybody in here got a platform, boy, I got greatness in me. We all got greatness in us. My name is Keith. My email, keithgross102@gmail.com. All I just need to sit down and plant this seed. We all can come together and save our children.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you very much, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Malik Stuckey, owner of Universal Towing.
Oh, we got a letter from you earlier. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to say I'm born and raised Baltimore, Maryland, and I feel the same sentiment as everyone else in this room. I've been an advocate ever since I've been in business for the last 25 years to advocate for minority-owned businesses and WBE businesses, because in my opinion, when we work together economically, then we're able to help the community holistically with issues in the family, issues with income, school, and development. So pretty much a lot of the sentiment that they felt. I graduated from Frederick Douglass High School, you know, and I remember when the state wanted to take that over, and you know, I still was able to break through West Baltimore and still be able to have a business and to still be able to help other people. But my business takes me to other cities like Philadelphia, New York, and even Richmond, Virginia. And they see Baltimore on my trucks, and they're like, oh, you're from Baltimore. But I'm here to say that you got a tough job, man, and we're making progress. When I go around these different neighborhoods, you know, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but we are making strides. You know, I just left the Cross Street area, and I'm like, wow, this it's a whole nother world. And as far as policing, you know, I worked with the police for many years, right hands, you know, side by side with them. So I saw everything. And like I said, I feel the sentiment that the young people have, that when they have things to do, you know, they're not going to get in trouble and they're not going to be stealing cars. But as the other brother, you know, he was kind of furious, but he did make a valid point that when we get to the causes, you know, we control the effects. So I just want to say, keep up the good work. And, you know, we want to support you as the city moves along and, you know, get past a lot of these systemic problems.
Thank you. And we'll follow up. We got your letter. We'll make sure to follow up on it.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Peace and love, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. Buenas tardes. My name is Chaplain Lovelace. I'm actually a volunteer with BPD in the community. I volunteer in the schools. I volunteer in the juvenile justice system. First of all, respects to the Black Queen of Wall Street, and to, of course, Mama, our guardian of Baltimore, Mama Deborah. Thank you. Okay. So I'm here. There's a lot of things I can say, a lot of negative things I can say, but we all know the negative. So I'm here to perpetuate the positive and the truth. And I'd like to thank the pastor for his hospitality. I'd like to thank all of our brothers and sisters who are here sharing their truth. Thank you for listening. You know, I see Mama Deborah's hat. If you ain't see it, look at it. We spend less than $25,000 a year on each student educating them, but we spend over $220,000 incarcerating them per student per year. We have programs in place. We have proactive programs in place. We have a lot of good going on in Baltimore that's not getting the support it needs. I have people like, you know, not to name drop, but like Ms. Sheila Dixon. I talk to her weekly. I talk to former Chief Ham weekly. I talk to Chief Russell almost daily. And I have access to these guys. And they help us in our efforts in building up the community. And the problem is that, here's my question: why aren't you guys communicating with us? And why aren't you communicating with our tribe when people who formerly held your position understand the value of what we're doing and provide resources? Thank you.
So I'll just start. I'll communicate with anybody, right, that wants to work. I know you can ask Deputy Commissioner Russell when you talk to him tonight about the many hours he and I spent walking these streets with no one else, and he'll tell you that I'll work with anybody, right? When you look at the money that we're pumping into community organizations to do community violence intervention, eco work, we'll work with anybody. Just reach out. We'll be sure to work with you each and every day. That's something that we do, and we won't shy away from that. The brothers, We Are Us, and others can talk about that ad nauseum, about the support level they're getting from me personally.
And you're within BPD, so you can reach up to me relatively easily, just right through the chaplains. We actually have a graduation tomorrow night, I believe, for 20 more chaplains. I was signed their certificates today. And also, I talk to former Colonel Russ almost monthly. I talked to him last week about something else. I saw him at the prayer walk and the prayer motorcade. So I see him quite often, and he was one of the people who helped mentor me when I first became a commander, because he was already a major in the Eastern when I became the captain in the Northern. So we can continue, but we have to reach out to the young people.
Ma'am.
Hi, good evening, Mr.
Good evening.
Scott, Mr. Worley. How are you doing? So I wanted to just start by saying this. 10 years ago, I moved here from New Jersey to raise my children because we were leaving from a city that's very similar to Baltimore, and there's tons of shootings and all type of things happening. This is my son here. The time I moved here, he was 11, my daughter was 8, and my other daughter was 7, and I was pregnant with my youngest. I moved here with the sole purpose for raising my children where they won't be shot, right? So my name is Crystal Gonzalez.
Nice to meet you, Chris.
We've spoke.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Worley, I met you at the scene of the end of life for my daughter. There's certain words I won't say, right? So I poured so much into my children. Aaliyah was a straight A student, honor roll student, musically inclined, artist. She was a supreme artist. And I used to have a fear that I'm raising these kids, and my son knows not to bring home any woman who doesn't have any type of dignity about herself. I
Yes,
used to
ma'am.
always have this fear that my daughters wouldn't bring home some knucklehead, and they know better, And here's the thing, I was raised myself. My mom was a crackhead, oldest of 5. I raised my brothers and sisters. I know what the life is. I've seen my mother be on welfare and go smoke it all up. So I had to get a job at a very young age. I brought my kids here so that they wouldn't have to experience any of that. So just like this queen has that hat, educate, don't incarcerate, I don't believe the youth should be incarcerated at all. I believe I'm listening to all these things about programs for the youth, but I am such a huge advocate I want to have programs for parents. I want to have these programs for parents who don't have the tools that they need to raise their children, to teach their children not to shoot my kid, right? So I want to congratulate, it was brought to my attention that you're having a baby.
Yes, ma'am.
And I
Thank
want to
you.
say babies are so precious. I have to live with this unbearable pain every single day because my rights right after that were violated when a video of me finding my daughter dead went viral. I want to know, what are you going to do so that baby Charm doesn't get shot in the city of Baltimore?
Yeah, thank
Because I
you.
didn't expect that from me ever.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. And as you know, you and I have had conversations, that I'm so sorry what happened to your beautiful daughter and to your sister. We're going to continue to do that work, right? And it's all of the things that you mentioned. There is not one simple solution to what's happening in Baltimore, where you're from, in New Jersey, and you and I talked about, so I know where that is. There's not one solution. We have to make sure that we're investing in these children's education in ways that we haven't for all of my lifetime. We have to make sure that their parents and their guardians have the opportunities and careers and the things needed to provide for them. We have to work around this addiction that we have, and the way that addiction and drugs has a hold on so many people in our city, right? A city that actually loses 3 times the amount of people to overdose than we even do to gun violence, right? And we very rarely even talk about that. We have to do that work of investing in those communities that have been disinvested to in many years. We have to hold people accountable that are using guns, no matter who they are, where they're bringing them from, holding gun stores, gun owners, gun manufacturers, gun users. All of those things are what we're going to continue to do to try to make sure that no one goes through that, right? And we have to build better people so that they don't resolve their conflicts in ways like the way that they did that night that your beautiful daughter was
I
murdered.
just want to say this also. Now, I listened to you say that this force is the best it's been in years. I don't know the numbers. I don't keep track. All I know is that I listened to the transcripts. I read them, and I heard police officers said, this is a job for the National Guard. No one responded.
Yep.
I had people from that community almost begging the police to come there. No
Yep.
one responded. Dispatch started begging police to send someone out there. Nobody responded. And then I heard you say, by the time we got here, the incident had already occurred, but it didn't. It did not have to occur.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
understand? It did not have to happen.
It did not. And what I will say to you is, and what I've said to the commissioner is that we can and we will hold people responsible in every way that we can, right? And as I always say, that while BPD might be better than it ever was in my lifetime, we have and I can't say what I really want to say because Bishop Bell might put me out, we have a very long way to go. And that what I'm going to do is make sure that we're making those steps and strides every day. And as I've said to you, we'll be there for you. I'll be there for you to help you guys through whatever that you need. Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Dan Hellerback. I'm a Northeast resident, longtime Northeast resident, and former school administrator in the city of Baltimore. I want to say how great it is to see so many community members out at these hearings, as town halls, and our representatives that came out tonight, because it does matter who our police commissioner is. And last time I was at the town hall, Mayor Scott, I tried to ask a question of interim Commissioner Worley, and I wasn't allowed to do that. And I'm a reflective person, so I took a week and was thinking about why you might be afraid to have him answer the question. It was a kind of almost a softball question about how you would change the culture of the police department. Probably some good BS answer, for lack of a better word, would have even, would have been fine. But when I thought about it, I thought there's implication in saying that how you're going to change the culture of the police department. One has to admit that there's a problem with the officers. You have to admit that that's the case in order to say how you're going to change it. And I heard last week you said something about I haven't ever witnessed an officer commit a crime. Tonight you said something about the fact that an officer is serving 20 years for their crime. Let's say, again, remind you that that's the feds that actually did that, not Baltimore City. Let's remember that. So I'm asking you tonight if you will admit that you were aware of the malfeasance, the misconduct, the violence of the officers when you were in command of the Northeast District, and you're aware now of malfeasance in your department.
I was not aware in the Northeast. You can believe me or not believe me. I was not aware of in the Northeast. What I can tell you is bad cops do not commit acts in front of good cops because they know we will not stand for it. Every time an officer did something wrong, they were charged administratively and it was taken up to internal affairs. That's my part of doing it. I will hold our members accountable. We are already in the reform process. The department has changed. The culture started changing when Commissioner Harrison got here 4 years ago. And we've worked to change the culture from being a warrior where we go in and occupy areas to where we go in and we're guardians of areas. We handled behavioral crisis really bad 4 years ago. Now we're teaching our officers how to handle those. We're having social workers drive with our officers. We have a least intrusive use of force policy. We give warnings as opposed to citations. We do a lot of things a lot different than we did 4 years ago that is changing the culture. And we fired or terminated in lieu of, or resigned in lieu of termination, over 100 of officers over the last couple years, 4 years. So we are holding our men and women accountable. We have officers suspended every day for doing things wrong. And there's a process that they have to go through, and they're giving penalties. And we hold them accountable. And I will continue to hold them accountable as long as I'm the commissioner.
So you're saying you will not admit you were aware of these atrocities when happened when you were the commander of North?
Well, I'm not going to admit to something that I wasn't aware of.
And Mr. Hellerbeck, I'll just say the only reason why you couldn't ask your question last week, I respect you more than that, was that you had your one, you asked me one, that was the way you chose. You asked him one tonight. It's just about the people behind you. So thank you. Thank you.
But they had more than 2 minutes too.
Starting with you, Shorty.
Take mine.
Caroline Griffin. I am the former chair of the Mayor's Anti-Animal Abuse Advisory Commission. My question is for the acting commissioner. The police department has not had a full-time designated detective investigating animal cruelty for 3 years. And as a result, the number of investigations and charges filed has dropped. these are violent crimes that are connected to other violent crimes. And I was wondering, are you willing, if you are commissioner, to appoint a full-time detective, not part-time, a full-time detective to investigate cases of animal cruelty?
We have one. We have a full-time detective now
not-
investigating too.
Sir, it's a member of the Family Crimes Unit who, for obvious reasons, is involved with family crimes the vast majority of time. Last week, no time was spent on animal cruelty cases. We need a full-time designated.
That's not the way it's supposed to be. He should be dedicated to animal abuse.
So would you be willing
Yes.
to have someone
Yes.
full-time handling these cases?
We'll follow up with you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sir?
Good evening. Good evening. I'm here to raise concerns regarding prostitution.
Hold on, everybody. Shh. We couldn't. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I'm here to raise concerns regarding prostitution and solicitation in residential neighborhoods. I live on the 23rd and between the 23rd and 2400 block of Guilford, and that is a commonly known, high activity area for that. My fellow community members and I, we've been in contact with your office, Mayor Scott. We've been in contact with BPD. We've engaged Councilman Strokes. I've been in contact with both Representative Boyce and Embry. Haven't talked to Congressman Infumi about it yet, but there should be no excuse for you guys to say that you're not aware of this problem. So my question is, what is BPD and the city office doing to combat this problem? Because what irks me the most is that this isn't tolerated in other neighborhoods, so why should it be tolerated in mine? Like, you don't see this in Roland Park, you don't see it in Canton, you don't see it in Fells Points, so why is it okay to do that in my neighborhood?
Yeah, I can answer that. We aren't making prostitution arrests anywhere in the city. We are working with the state's attorneys because, as you probably know, a lot of these sex workers are involved in human trafficking and other issues. So we're working together with the state's attorney to come up with a diversion program, because we can continue to lock up the same sex workers over and over. And if we don't get them help to get out of their drug addiction or their sex work, if we don't give them help, they're just going to continue to go out there and recidivate. And so arresting them and putting them in jail isn't the answer. Diversion and giving them opportunities to get out of that practice is the answer. But one way we can start to do things is to pull over the vehicles who are soliciting these sex workers. So if we start doing those things, we did it in that area when I was a captain. We had a very successful program where we started pulling over vehicles down there. And if you notice, we even went to the point where there are certain traffic patterns down there where those traffic patterns were put in place because the Johns were cruising the area.
Yeah.
So it's an easy car stop for the officer if they make certain turns.
There's more traffic at that intersection between 2 to 3 a.m. at night than there is 2 to 3 p.m. So once again, you guys are on the record today. I bet you next year this is still going to be an issue, and I will be here to address those concerns again until you guys do something.
So what we'll say, sir, is that, listen, I don't know how long you've lived there, but 6 years, there's been prostitution on Guilford Avenue for 66 years. So we'll start there. But what you also hear from us today is that we're going to continue to work in a complete and comprehensive way to deal with that, right? Because we know that we have to make sure that we're dealing with, they call them Johns, dealing with the Johns, dealing with the folks who are dealing in sex work in a different way. The state's attorney and my office actually have been working on creating this, so we have this new partnership around the diversion and how we can do that. We actually had this same conversation with the gentleman from Highlandtown, Canton, the other day, because that's a neighborhood where they have a very, very deep problem around in the Highlandtown and the Canton area, and they're going to continue to work with us on how to identify those folks, and we'll be doing that across the city, not just in any neighborhood. If it's Garrison Boulevard, if it's Guilford Avenue, if it's in Highland Avenue, wherever it is where we're going to be doing it.
My name is CJ. I'm live in the 3rd district, Ryan Dorsey's district, whom I must say is absolutely worthless. I've written him multiple times. It's a hit or miss, Mr. Mayor, if he'll get back to you. But my concern is the Eagle Mart on Northern Parkway
And McLean.
In McLean. I've written him. The first thing he says in his paragraph, we know it's a problem. It's been a long-standing problem. No solutions. The cops, they sit there in their car, and that's all they do. That's all they do. Let me say this. Almost a year ago this month, you had a meeting with the previous commissioner. The U.S. attorney was there. It was in East Baltimore.
Oh, yes, sir.
Right. And the same day, several people were shot in Park Heights.
Yep.
I was at that meeting. I'm driving up Park Heights. I didn't know exactly where the shooting was. I see all the white shirts. I saw the commissioner there. I was directed, so I had to go on Pimlico. I'm sitting on Pimlico and Wally at the stop sign. I'm watching drug deals go down. As a cop parked, his car is facing south. The drug deals are going down. I took a picture of the cop a year ago. That's his car and his number. Why don't you take it and look at it? And his number. I drove up to the cop. He didn't even see me. He was watching a movie on his phone. What is it worth? When are you going to get out of your car, engage people, and actually do something? Otherwise, just play spades in the wherever. He's watching a movie. I have it right here.
Yes, sir.
He's watching a movie on his phone. Drug deals are going down on Pimlico and Wally.
Yep.
Why are you sitting in your car? Why aren't you getting out and doing something? But that same gas station that I'm telling you about,
the Eagle Mart.
People, they sit there all day, smoke blunts. You can go at 10 o'clock, they're smoking blunts. 12 o'clock, they're rolling blunts. They have backpacks on their backs.
So we know where it is. I'm gonna let the commissioner respond first, and then I'll respond. Yeah.
Cocaine and heroin is not, Shorty.
So
it's not.
Don't, Shorty. Let that man ask his question. He didn't bother you when you were asking yours, Mr. Commissioner. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Your command. Actually, I thought I saw your major here somewhere.
No. You got it.
It's Major Amy. He's here. I thought he was here somewhere. But what we can do is first of all, the officers need to get out of the car. I agree with you. That's part of the initiative for the foot patrol. We want them to park their cars. We want to get out of the car, because even if they are standing around the Eagle Mart, if the officer walks up and just starts talking to them, they're not going to stand around the Eagle Mart too much. And if the Eagle Mart is complicit in allowing the activity, we can do a padlock law on the Eagle Mart. We started that when I was in the Northeast, but then we didn't have enough evidence to close the mart. We worked with the owners and they made some changes. So that's what the district commander can do. He can work with the owner to make some changes. He can work with the schools, because some of those kids come right up from the school and they hang right on the lot. So they can work with the schools. At one point, we had the administrators from the school come out and address the children. That helped a great deal, but there's legal ramifications for that. So it's our job to address them, and our officers will address them. And I'll make sure that the major deals with that Eagle Mart, and we take care of your issues.
And we'll get that picture from you too. And just so you know that now, when we had that meeting last year, we know that petty drug level cases were not being taken. So now BPD's arrests for those are back up, because they actually can turn those back over to the station attorney. But we'll get that picture from you. Thank you very much.
And we can accept 5 more people in line.
Good evening. My name is Taverla Straughter. I was at the virtual meeting on yesterday.
Yes, ma'am.
And I didn't get my question answered.
Did you leave a message? We will
Yes.
call you back. All right.
I did.
Okay.
But my family is here, and we have been lobbying with the General Assembly down in Annapolis for the House Bill 459 for the juvenile reform, and had not been successful. The Senate passed it, went to the House. As my nephew said, Luke Clippinger didn't present it before the House, and so therefore that amended bill for some changes in the juvenile reform to allow all of the children, regardless of the age, to have an assessment to determine whether or not they should be able to have some services, whatever that services is. But the Baltimore City Police Department will make the referral, and the intake will go to the Department of Juvenile Services, not because they filed the petition, but because we say that these youth need to have some type of services. So what I'm asking is it that your office, when you send a message out to all of our constituents to say, hey, it's time for us, we're going to Annapolis, you send your letters so that we can have some or even more power to be able to make sure that legislation gets modified, amended, changed, thrown out, whatever they need to do to make sure that our youth are getting the services. Our young person died from the hands of a 10-year-old with a gun, and we're saying, hey, this kid needed the services. This kid is sitting in DSS, but he's not getting any services. Thank you.
So I'll just say, we in church, so I'll just say amen to what you just said. We will, as we always do, push out for when they having stuff. They're going to be having things about this next month, but when the session comes out, we'll be sure. And I know you guys met with Senator Carter, so you know that she'll be actually doing that. And for those who don't know, I know that my representatives that are here from the 45th district do that. All of those state legislative districts hold what they call district nights before and after session. The one before is when there's opportunities like this for folks to actually say what kind of laws they want to see changed, because oftentimes we even fall short of having laws. We had a law last year that I introduced because I got tired of going to homicide scenes of young people killed with an ankle bracelet on. If the state's supposed to be knowing where those young people are, right? They should know exactly where they are. And lo and behold, I find out that under the current law, they have 48 hours to be outside of their area before there's any action taken. Where all of us think if they have GPS on the ankle, that means that they're gonna, hey, if they step outside, then someone will be able to do something. Unfortunately, we had the opposite. We had it pass the House and die in the Senate this year, and we've been working with the governor and others. But we know that we have to do so many changes. And what I'll say that you said speaks the most to me, because we have this even we saw this with a young person that we arrested for some robberies where he was deemed mentally unfit to stand trial. And myself, the commissioner, and everyone else was like, well, you just can't send them home. You need to send them home and have some service for them and their families. And we have to work with and push our state partners to build that so that that happens, so that no one goes through what your family went through. Yes, we're happy that the state's attorney charged the grandmother, right? But we know that there's another young person that clearly is in need of help, that needs help so that he can be reformed as well. So thank you.
Good evening. My name
Good
is
evening, Ms. Jones.
Floyd, and on the subject of Johns Hopkins University private police, Mr. Mayor, at previous meetings you've made some statements about the private police that have been inaccurate. These statements are not supported by the documents that are in charge of the situation. For instance, you've stated that the commissioner was required by law to sign a memorandum with Johns Hopkins University. But no, that was enabling legislation. That was not a mandate from the state. It was just enabling legislation. Lots of enabling legislation never gets implemented at the local level. You equated Johns Hopkins University private police with police departments from public universities. That was inaccurate. You stated that in front of the public and the cameras, you stated that the Johns Hopkins University police must follow the consent decree, and that's not accurate either. But I want to try to give you the benefit of the doubt. I think that's definitely possible that you actually believe these statements that you made. And the reason would be that there have been years and years and years of misinformation, misleading information, gaslighting, and you may have actually fallen prey to that, as so many others have. So my only question to you tonight, Mr. Mayor, will you commit tonight to meeting with the well-informed, very diverse opposition to the Johns Hopkins University private police so that we can have real, meaningful communication based on what is real and what is true, and then we can talk to you and explain to you what our opposition is and what needs to be done.
I have before. I will again, but I will tell you, Ms. Jones, that there was a couple of things that I think there were some inaccuracies in what you just stated. One, the first portion is that I didn't say that by law the commissioner had to sign it. What I said is that if that was challenged, if, let's just say in a world of if if Commissioner Harrison, because that's who signed it, the MOU is already in place now, right? And they have an entirety of how they will be built and how they'll be held accountable and all of those things. If Commissioner Harrison said, no, I'm not signing this, even though the state passed legislation that says Johns Hopkins can have it. Any lawyer worth their snuff will tell you, in a state and in a city where basically every single other college and university has a police force, that's not going to stand up in court, that we're going to lose. And the citizens of Baltimore are going to be paying for those lawyers that go to court when they're going to say that, hey, okay, well, why can Morgan have it? Why can Coppin have it? Why can this person have it? And now you're saying that this one haven't, right? That's what we're doing. But sure, we will sit down and meet. I'll sit down with you guys and meet with you again. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Sir?
Yeah, good day. Pleasant good day to everybody. To the mayor, and the commissioner, and everybody again.
Sir.
All right, I came from Trinidad and Tobago with my family. We came to the U.S. as many people did for a better life. I love the U.S. I love America. And one of the things is I want to do something for the U.S. also. I've lost a lot of friends in my country. I grew up playing soccer, and I have a great concept that can change things around. Actually, it can actually build the communities. And I call it the PPP, which is our public-private partnership, where we can start a professional soccer league, basketball out of the communities, and it will help make a dent in crime. And I would love to run this concept. I'm actually doing it on the 23rd on September. It's in Lake Clifton Park. So I'm doing a proof of concept. So I'm registering my own soccer league, and it will be professionals. And I'm looking to organize with the mayor, if you would like, and the commissioner, if I can get you all involved, and we can go further from there. And I promise you, it will build the communities, and people will be getting paid off of it. With the communities also and it will help make a dent, as I say, in crime, and it will take a burden off of the government purse. 'Cause I know you guys trying, and it is just so much you all can do. So it take a collective effort. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. We definitely, if you find one of the staff members will find out. Now I can tell you, I can't play soccer. It's the one sport I can't play. But we know that many people, and especially in that location, anyone that has visited Northeast Baltimore on a Saturday know how deep the culture is of soccer right there. Ma'am?
Yes, hi,
Hey, ma'am.
Mayor. How you doing? And Acting Commissioner. I'm glad that you guys are having these charrettes around Baltimore City because it's greatly needed. And I'm hoping whoever's Crown Commissioner continues to maybe have the quarterly meetings with the community so that you can hear from the community. And I see that in the Black Butterfly, it seems like we all are having a lot of the similar incidents. When a young lady was talking about being kicked out of her place where they were rehearsing, we were kicked out of our community center by the Housing Authority of Baltimore City. And I think that they need to also bear some of the blame for what happened in Brooklyn, and it should not be all placed on the police department as well. My question is about redistricting. The consent decree said that they didn't address redistricting because we hadn't did it in decades, so they didn't address it.
Since 1959, to be exact.
Right. And in our community, we're on the corner of Martin Luther King and Franklin. And so across the street from us is the Central District, and 1 block from us is Southwest. But we are Western District now. And so because of the way that everything's cut up, if something happens directly across the street from us in the Central District, we have no way of knowing it. And it's more important for us to know what's going on right across from us than it is on Monroe Street, which is a mile away from us. And so we want to know how in the world can we get that type of information so that we can assess the safety of our community and our community members.
Yeah, we can get the commanders from all 3 districts to send you the information. Basically, they send it out some of them on a daily, some of them on a weekly basis. But we also put out tweets, and we put out text messages when we have a shooting or something like that. But redistricting was done. This was something Mayor Scott was talking about when he was the council person, maybe even before that, and when we were in the Northeast, because the Northeast was so big. So redistricting, what it did is equated the amount of calls that each district and each post has. So instead of one district like the Northeast having 25% of the community of the city live in one district, it's now a lot smaller. All the districts are close in size, close in call volume, and the post cars, which drive your neighborhood, those are all divided so that they have an equal workload that's going to give them more time for free time to walk foot and do other things.
Mayor, can you address how you're going to assess the success of the district?
Yeah, thank you. And I think that thank you. We're actually in, like, we haven't even been 2 months into the new districts, right? So we're going into our second month of redistricting, and what we did, just for a little historical knowledge for everyone, as I said earlier, Baltimore police hadn't redistricted its police district since 1959. Just happens to be the year my dad was born, and then we had been working for many years. Actually, that baton was passed to me from Councilman Bobby Karen, because the impetus was really that the Northeast District had so many calls, like over 100,000 people, and the other district had that, hundreds of thousands of calls for services, which other districts haven't. And now what we did, we worked with my Senator Corey McCray and our wonderful House members to pass a law, because at that time BPD was a state agency, which is one of the reasons why redistricting hadn't happened in so long, because no one knew who was on first, that we have to analyze this at least every 10 years based off of calls for service, violent crime, nonviolent crime, population, and also what we did in this is we united a bunch of neighborhoods, right, into districts. We had so many neighborhoods that were split between one district and another. If you were in what was known effectively as the tri-district, you could be on one corner and one district, one corner another, one corner another, right? We had to make those things happen. And what we'll be doing is looking at how that call volume is spread upon the city, how the violence and all these things are spread around the city, and what we're seeing as we go through time, so that we're being informed when it's time for us to do redistricting again, the same way that we have to do for our council districts, for our state legislative districts, for our congressional districts. We'll be doing it consistently and not waiting 60-something years to do it again. So
no, you do not.
At bare minimum, that's when the process has to happen. We can do it before then, and we'll be analyzing.
Yeah, our goal is to look at it for 6 months to a year, look at the data and see if we need to adjust it. And those adjustments, like the first rendition that just started, go out to public comment. You have a right to comment on it. So if things need to be done where you think something needs to be changed, we get your input, and then we look at the call volume and we look at the crime and everything else. Because we can change it now. We've learned, we've done it. So it wasn't as daunting of a task as we thought it was. It took a while. Took several months, but we can do it now, and we know we can do it right.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, everybody. I'm here to ask the police officer, Richard J. Worley, a question about a national and local public health hazard, and that's the culture of silence in policing. So, before I was born, just before I was born, my mom's father was killed by New York State cops, and it was declared a suicide, despite that it's impossible for someone to shoot themselves in the head multiple times. Then when I was 14, Baltimore City Police sexually harassed me downtown, outside the aquarium. I was by myself less for 5 minutes, and multiple BCPD officers told me clearly they wanted to rape me. And they only closed their mouths and walked away when I begun to record them. Years later, while I was at a peaceful protest outside City Hall, I got a spine injury that I'm still recovering from to this day. For a year, I could barely get up the steps to my apartment at a peaceful protest at the hands of BCPD. And people who don't look like me endure violence even worse than what I just described. Since then, I've worked at a Baltimore City elementary school as a literacy intervention tutor. And in my time there, elementary school children have wanted to talk to me about their trauma at the hands of police, and it was preventing them from being able to focus in school. So in your 25 years in the Baltimore City Police in various capacities, more than half of that in a position of leadership, my question for you, Have you ever witnessed police brutality or police intimidation in your 25 years, including in a position of leadership during the height of the Gun Trace Task Force's well-documented reign of terror?
I can tell you I have not. And I know you don't want to hear that, but I'm going to say the same thing I said before. Bad cops do not commit bad acts in front of good cops because they know we don't tolerate it. And what you're talking about, it was referred to as the thin blue line, where the officers basically didn't report each other. Most of our complaints now, we actually get more internal complaints in the BPD than we do from outside the department. These are members of within our department reporting other members for wrongdoing. That's part of the culture that we've changed, where there is no more thin blue line. We have, in the past, what would happen is if an officer basically filed charges against another officer, they would be retaliated against by different officers. There's a policy now that we have against retaliation. If someone makes a complaint and we find that another officer retaliates against that officer for the complaint, that officer who did the retaliation is going to be held accountable and punished more than the officer who filed the complaint. So those are things that we've changed. This is all part of the reform process. It's part of the Public Integrity Bureau being fully staffed with investigators to investigate these cases and to get the cases done quickly and to get them to further authority. If we have to prosecute them federally or with the state's attorney, we will do that. But those kind of behaviors that were tolerated in the past will not be tolerated.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Never seen police
Ma'am, thank you. He's already answered the question, and this is young lady's patiently waiting behind you. And I'm so sorry. Thank you.
You were in a position of power.
Ma'am, can you just come on up and start asking your question, sweetheart? Just come on. Just come on. Come on and ask your question. Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Shamira Simpson. I am the captain of the Marching Elite Stand Team. I am 16 years of age. I attend Western High School, and I've lived in the Bel Air Road, Edison for majority of my life. Daily, we receive requests to come support Baltimore City agencies, churches, and community organizations for their causes and events, but now we are unable to. They are confused and angered that from all the city's priorities, our band with 70+ teens were evicted with no recourse, forced to spend the last 2 weeks of our Youth Works program outside with shortened days, and only advisement we received was to send our workers home. Considering all that's going on in the city, especially with teens, do you think that is a reasonable solution? It was a priority of you, Mayor Scott, to keep us safe by funding these youth programs. But somehow, our organization, with more teens than any program in Oliver, is just put on the sidewalk. My band has played and took pictures alongside you for events that you've held. Now we are unable to. In no way, shape, or form am I blaming you for what happened in the Oliver Center. But we are here now. We are asking for you to see a situation happening under your authority and cause action in helping us uphold a building. Do you have the power to do so? And will you do what is needed to keep the youth safe and connected, starting with my band?
Absolutely. And as I said to your fellow members, should clap. We will find you a home. I know that my team is probably already scaring because they know nothing will get my fear and my theory than them not doing what they should do for our young people. And it was my understanding that they were working to find you guys a home, because that was my first and only instruction when they said that this is what's happening. They said, well, people have to have somewhere to go, so we'll be addressing that, and we will get you guys a home so that you can get back to practicing as you do. And thank you guys for what you do for us. Yes, sir, young brother.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kevin Washington. I'm 17 years old, and for my last year of high school, I'm currently attending the Reach Partnership High School. Right. And I'm also here representing the band also. The money we fundraise and the money given to us so we can stay away from crime now has to go to us finding a building for all of us. So now more of us teens are on the streets, and the fundraising money will now go to rent a practice and rehearsal space and keeping the band free and bringing in more teens as we did before. I had the honor of meeting you at the Baltimore Brothers graduation, where I was one of the graduates, and I shook your hand. I spent a lot of time in the Oliver Center, and I have seen you there on multiple occasions. And how could you come in the building and I have seen that the problems that the building was facing sooner. Knowing the tragedy of Brooklyn homes, was it really smart for you to put us teens out on the streets? Not only do we not have a practice space, but we also lost a place that we call home. Now, my question for you, Mr. Scott, how hard are you willing to go for programs like mine that need the financial support?
As hard as necessary. And I think that actually the issues about the building came to me from folks when I was visiting. And I don't remember if it was with Cap and Be More Brothers or the folks at the Oliver Center or Alpha Justice who raised it with us after one of my visits. So that's part of the reason why. And as I said earlier, we're going to find you guys a home and work with you as we always do. But I also am always going to have the blunt and honest, open conversation with you that I wouldn't be any type of man to allow you or anybody else to go back into that building that, quite frankly, this should have been done 20 years ago when I was around your age, and not waiting until now to have that done.
How you doing? My name Kamari. When we first left the building, it was hard for me because I joined, and it also I feel like it's weird that Rutson Park just received most of the money that you gave to the building, and our band and space put. I'm just gonna get to the point. We was kicked out of the building. Everybody inside of the building got a place to go, but everybody that when we try to go to a different place, they basically said it was no space for us, or we too big of a size. If it's too big of a size, then why we can't get our own building? And it's not your fault because I know you doing what you need to get. Also, like, I feel like it's weird that they're getting most of the money and they're asking for our people to sign up so they can get more money. That's weird to me. We here trying to, you feel me?
I know exactly what you're saying, and I'll just say that that's the part that bothers me the most too. And what I'll say to you and to the young people too, that in the future when something like this happens, you don't have to wait this long to get to me. Young people all over the city find their ways and sending direct messages to me around anything. Scholarship money, they need a bus for their trip, they need equipment for their team, they need a place to practice or play. Make sure that we do that, but we're going to make sure that we do right by you guys and your organization. That will be my focus when I leave here tonight for sure.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ronald Miles, and crime is not with my lane, but there's some interesting things you talked about, and that is culture within the police department. And again, how we can prevent crime is that we've lost culture within our communities. Our neighbors do not talk to each other anymore. Each neighborhood are in silos. We look at our city departments, who are also in silos. We cannot keep up with all this stuff going on all the time. And I would also like to say, and I'm very much a supporter of Baltimore Elite. I tell you, they help me out a lot, and I try helping them. I help them. I ain't try. I help them. But anyway, what I'm dealing with also is that throughout the summer, we are now pouring money into the Department of Recreation and Parks. But what we haven't done is assessed exactly how they are operating. I can stand at NAF and Dunbar, where the children come out of the school and stand in front of the building when Chickweb Rec Center was open. I've also
It will be again, as you know.
Oh yeah, it's going to get there. So the other part of that, though, is as far as the Chickweb Center and how national it is. But we have proposed, and what I think is going to be really important, is that we don't just talk about recreation, but we need to talk about an intergenerational center, a health and wellness and education center. We need to assess the performance of the Department of Rec to see whether or not the programming within the centers are appropriate to get the children off the street.
Yes, sir.
It does not happen.
No, I'll say, Mr. Miles, and actually, I'll send it to you. And I think you better than anybody else in this room know how I feel about your first statement about neighbors and being able to talk to your neighbors and have those community conversations about accountability. Because as you know, someone that's related to you had the authority to discipline me in any way that she see fit as my parents' neighbor. But I think that we are going through this process with Recreation and Parks. Actually, we're pushing it out. I'll make sure I'll send it to you later, asking for community feedback specifically around that as we envision. Because for me, yes, I know that Rec and Parks has been just desolate for money for many years, but me pouring a whole bunch of money at it is not the sole solution. We have to create the specific type of programming that the young people want, and we have to, our older adults want, and this is how, when we're looking at these centers, not just Chickwet, but like Middle Branch and Cherry Hill, we create a facility where it can be multi-generational, right? And then now we have to program it as such, and we're going to be reaching out to community members and other folks like yourself to build that up so that we can hold the department accountable for their action, not just for young people, but for everybody. However, I will say that what I've been doing, and I know the commissioner knows this because I push this on the police department a lot too, is pulling back and knocking down those silos between agencies, right? When you think about, because you were talking about young people, when you think about the stuff that we did this summer with the Be More Summer campaign, right? That was the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success, city schools, Rec and Parks, BPD, school police in some instances helping out with the security for the pool parties, all these agencies working together. The same thing that we do when we're talking about cleaning and clean stat. It's not just DPW anymore, right? BPD has a responsibility. When officers are driving around and they see trash dumped, they should be letting us know so that those agencies can work together to clean it up. Housing, everybody has to work together, and we've been doing that. Actually, the commissioner and I did that when I was a councilman and he was just a district commander. Sorry, Miss Rita, infamously in Northeast Baltimore, we actually organize at the community's behests, organize things with all agencies that come out from the health department and others, where we discovered many food violations and things like that we're able to work on together. And now we're pushing that on all of the agencies to do that. And just because you can get me anytime, and there's 3 more people, and Bishop is gonna kick me out of here in a few minutes, but I just gotta let this young lady ask her question.
Come on. Hi,
Hello, ma'am.
I'm Mrs. Ludley from the Baltimore Inner Harbor. I've been a shop there owner for the past 30 years. I'm proclaimed by Governor Schaefer, Governor Ehrlich, Governor O'Malley, the police department, and Brandon Scott, the mayor, and I appreciate it very much. I'm here to talk about children's crime. At the Baltimore Inner Harbor, we have a bicycle lane in front of the Cheesecake Factory that was made by the mayors. But the bicycles are behind the Cheesecake Factory on the red brick. The police sit in their cars and just looks at them. And we're having high crime. With the bicycles, they're running over the locals, the tourists, the babies. Bicycles do not belong on our red brick. It's for people. Please, take the wheelie bicycles, they're crime, off of our Baltimore Inner Harbor.
Mr. Commissioner.
Yes, ma'am. We have the member of the Inner Harbor unit, the district commander that oversees that, is right in the back, and he's going to take note of it. He'll talk to the Inner Harbor unit patrols the Inner Harbor. They can address that issue. Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am.
Hi, how are you doing?
How are you, ma'am?
Good.
Hello.
My name is Rachel Cutler. I'm the Baltimore organizer with Jews United for Justice, and I have a quick 2-parter from our coalition partners. Mayor Scott, you mentioned earlier that we are using the capital budget to address poverty in the city. And in that vein, as you remember, organizers at Baltimore Renters United asked for $25 million for rental assistance. We got the commitment of $3 million from your office, but we've had radio silence since that commitment. So as we know, evictions are going up, rental assistance money is out, and $3 million could help 950 families. So my question is, are you committing an additional $3 million to rental assistance, and when will we see those funds transferred to rental assistance? That's part A. And part B. Okay.
So I get the answer to that is yes. Our commitment is the commitment. We'll be doing that, and we'll be working through that. Obviously, as we go through budgets and things like that, there are processes that we have to make, and we'll make sure. As you know, I know how to get a hold of you guys. I will be reaching out to you guys at Youth Financial Justice to talk about how and where we'll be doing that as we see the original rental assistance money start to dry out. Thank you. And last but not least.
On the last one?
Yes, sir.
How you guys doing?
Go ahead, man. You gotta take the mic.
I'm the last one. Look, but I just want to make a statement
Yes, sir.
that about the juveniles in Baltimore City. That's my thing, you know. And the men in Baltimore City, we failed Baltimore City. I'm telling you, we failed at being good husbands. We failed at being good fathers, leaders, and role models. So in order for this situation in Baltimore with these youth to get back in check, the men in Baltimore have to stand up. We have to stand up. We got many women standing up. We got more women than men. The men in Baltimore have to stand up. So I'm putting the call out to all men in Baltimore. Let's get together, let's stand up, and let's change this situation, man.
Thank you. I couldn't agree more. As everyone knows, I infamously led an organization doing just that, challenging men to be out and walking these actually streets in this neighborhood. We want to thank everyone for coming out. Thank you all for participating in these. And please, everyone, get home safe.